Hi children, welcome back to the lesson Nationalism in India. In the previous unit, we learned the non-cooperation movement started in the year 1921 with the maximum participation of middle classes. We have learned that how non-cooperation movement started with the boycotting of foreign goods and services. But this boycotting of foreign goods and services did not go for a long. The reason was there was no alternative Indian institutions where the students they could get education, where the educated Indians they could gain experience. We have also learned about the peasant struggle of Awadh, who were led by Baba Ramchandra, where the movement was against the talukdars and landlords. And as the movement spreaded, it developed in such a form which made the Congress unhappy with. We have also learned the tribal peasant struggle of Andhra Pradesh, where the tribals revolted when they were deprived of their own land as well as when they were forced to do begar. And there they were led by an interesting figure called Alluri Sitaram Raju. And as the tribals they were weaker, they were crushed by the Britishers and their leader he also got executed. We have also learned about the plantation workers of Assam, where there was no permission for these plantation workers to move out of their plantation fields. But as they heard the messages of Mahatma Gandhi and when they heard of the non-cooperation movement defying the British authorities, they came out of their plantation fields. But they were also arrested by the British police and was brutally beaten up. We have learned that how people from various sections of the society participated in the non-cooperation movement with their different understanding towards the Swaraj. Today we shall be starting with our new unit, that is towards civil disobedience. Let us start. In February 1922, Mahatma Gandhi decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement. The movement which started in the year 1921, and within a year Mahatma Gandhi was thinking to withdraw this movement. What was the reason behind it? Let's study. The first reason was the Chauri Chaura incident which took place on 4th February 1922. The Chauri Chaura in Gorakhpur, it was a district in Uttar Pradesh, where a group of protesters they were demonstrating against the high prices of meat, and they were interrupted by the police, and some of the Indian leaders they got arrested by the police, and the peaceful demonstration which was going on turned into violent clashes with the police. To retaliate, the Indians they set up fire on the police station where 22 police people they died. The second reason was Mahatma Gandhi felt that this movement was turning into violence in many places. Now Mahatma Gandhi wanted these satyagrahis that they should be given proper training before entering into mass struggles. And the third reason was within the Congress, some leaders they were tired of the mass struggles which was going on because of this non-cooperation movement. They wanted to participate in the elections for the provincial councils which was being set up by the Government of India Act of 1919. Now they wanted to remain in the councils to argue against the British policies. They wanted to bring reforms and they wanted to demonstrate that these councils they were not democratic. And now C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru, they under the leadership of this, they formed Swaraj Party to make a return towards the council politics. But there were leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, they wanted radical mass agitations to get full independence. These young leaders, they wanted to gain independence through movements. They did not wanted to participate in elections or to be a part of the British councils. They wanted these Britishers to be out from India through movements. In such a situation of internal debate and dissension, two factors again shaped the Indian politics towards late 1920s. The first was the effect of worldwide economic depressions, due to which the agricultural prices began to fall from the year 1926 and got collapsed after 1930s. And as the demand for agricultural products fell down, the exports declined. The peasants, they were unable to sell their harvest, and as a result they were not able to pay the revenues. And this type of situation created a situation of great turmoil all over the countryside. The whole of rural areas, they were in great disturbance and the poverty increased. The second reason was the establishment of Simon Commission, which was established in the year 1927 by the new Tory government in Britain, and it was headed by Sir John Simon. This commission was formed to review the working of Government of India Act of 1919 as well as to suggest constitutional and administrative reforms in the British colonial rule of India. But the problem was that this commission did not have any Indian members. All the members, they were the British people. Now the Indians boycotted this commission because no single Indian member was there and there was no indication towards Swaraj, which was the main motive of the Indians. When the Simon Commission arrived in the year 1928, it was greeted with the slogan, "Go back Simon, Simon go back." All the parties, including Congress, the Muslim League, participated in the demonstration along with their banners of Simon go back. And this incident took place in Lahore. Now, when this protest was going on, the police did the lathi charge, and in this lathi charge, the main leader Lala Lajpat Rai, he died. Indians kept on protesting. Seeing the protest made by the Indians against the Simon Commission, the Viceroy of India, Lord Irwin, he announced a vague offer of dominion status for India for an unspecified future, which means there was no clear expressions given by him, as well as a round table conference for the discussion of future constitution. The announcement made by Lord Irwin did not satisfy the Congress members, especially the radicals who were led by Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose. They became now more assertive. Now they wanted to bring some radical changes. They wanted to oust these Britishers completely from India and gain full independence through movements. But while the liberals and moderates, those who proposed constitutional system within the framework of British dominion, gradually lost their influences. Now let's study the main features of Lahore Congress session which took place in 1929. In December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, Lahore Congress formalized the demand of Purna Swaraj or complete independence. It was also declared that 26 January 1930 would be celebrated as Independence Day, where people would take a pledge to struggle for complete independence. But all these celebrations, they were of little attention. So Mahatma Gandhi had to find a way to relate the abstract idea of freedom to the concrete issues of everyday life. It means now Gandhiji anyhow wanted the ideas of freedom to come to a reality. Now let's study the Salt March and the Civil Disobedience Movement. Mahatma Gandhi found in salt a powerful symbol to unite the whole country. On 31 January 1930, Mahatma Gandhi sent a letter to Lord Irwin stating 11 demands. Some of them were of general interest, but some were specific demands of different classes, from industrialists to peasants group. The idea was to make the demands wide-ranging so that the Indians from different classes can be brought together in a united campaign. And the most telling of all the demands was to abolish the salt tax. As we know, children, the salt, it is the most essential item of a food and it is used alike by both rich and poor. And Mahatma Gandhi said that putting tax on salt as well as having complete monopoly over the production of salt is the oppressive phase of the Britishers. Now this letter, it was an ultimatum given to the Lord Irwin that if their demands were not fulfilled by 11 March, the Congress would be launching up with civil disobedience movement. But Irwin was unwilling to meet the demands of the Congress. So Mahatma Gandhi began the famous Salt March on 12 March 1930, which was accompanied by 78 of his trusted volunteers. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhiji's ashram in Sabarmati to the coastal town of Dandi. The people walked for 24 days for about 10 miles a day. Thousands of people, they came to meet Mahatma Gandhi wherever he used to stop. He used to give the messages of Swaraj and urge people to defy the British laws. And on 6th April, they reached the Dandi town and they broke the salt law by manufacturing salt by boiling water. And this was the beginning of civil disobedience movement. Now let's see how this movement was different from the non-cooperation movement. Here, the people were asked not only to refuse cooperation with the Britishers as they did in 1921 to 22, but they were also asked to break the colonial laws. The thousands of people in different parts of the country, they broke the salt law. They manufactured the salt and even they demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. The people boycotted the foreign clothes, they picketed the liquor shops, and even the peasants, they refused to pay revenue and the chowkidari taxes. And in villages, the officials resigned the offices. In forests, the people, they broke the forest laws by entering the reserved forest, by taking their cattle to graze over there, as well as they collected the wood from there. Now let's study what was the Britishers' reaction after the Dandi March. Seeing the developments which was taking place in different parts of the country, the colonial government was worried and they began to arrest Congress leaders one by one, which led to violent clashes within the different parts of the country. And in April 1930, when Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a devout disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, got arrested, the crowds of people, they became so angry that they came over the streets of Peshawar facing armored car and police firing. They protested against the Britishers and many satyagrahis were killed in this event. And after a month, when Mahatma Gandhi was arrested, the industrial workers of Sholapur, they came out, they attacked all the British structures like the police stations, railway stations, the municipal buildings and the law courts. Seeing all these rebels made by the Indians, the Britishers, they were frightened as well as annoyed and they responded with brutal repression. Peaceful satyagrahis were attacked, women and children were beaten and around 1 lakh people, they got arrested. Seeing this situation, Mahatma Gandhi had to once again call off the movement and enter into an agreement with Lord Irwin on 5 March 1931, and this pact was called to be as Gandhi-Irwin Pact. The agreement was Gandhiji would attend to the Round Table Conference which was to be held in London, and the government agreed to release the political prisoners. Children, the first Round Table Conference was boycotted by the British. Now this second Round Table Conference was agreed upon to attend by the Congress leaders. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London to attend to the conference, but the negotiations broke down because any of the basic demands of the Congress were not accepted by the British. So the Mahatma Gandhi, he returned back to India disappointed. Back in India, he discovered a new cycle of repression had been started by the Britishers. Both Jawaharlal Nehru and Ghaffar Khan, they were in jail. and the Congress was declared illegal. And a series of measures had been imposed by the Britishers to prevent meetings, demonstrations and boycott. Seeing the repressive measures of Britishers, Mahatma Gandhi, he relaunched the civil disobedience movement, and this movement continued till 1934. Though the movement was not successful, but it made the people active and conscious politically. Let us now look at the different social groups that participated in the civil disobedience movement. Why did they join the movement? What were their ideals? And what did the term Swaraj meant to them? Let's start with the rich peasants. In the countryside, the rich peasants like Patidars of Gujarat, the Jats of Uttar Pradesh were very active in this movement. Being the producers of the commercial crop, they were hard hit by the trade depression and the falling prices. And as the cash incomes disappeared, they were unable to pay the revenue demand made by the government. And they requested government to reduce the rate of revenue demand. But the refusal of the government to reduce the rate of revenue led to widespread resentment. And thus, the rich peasants, they became the active members of the civil disobedience movement, and they started even encouraging the unwilling other rich peasants to join the movements. They became active supporters of this movement. For them, the fight of Swaraj was to fight against the high rate of revenues. But with the failure of this movement in the year 1931, when Mahatma Gandhi called off this movement, they became very disappointed that without the rates being revised, this movement was called off. When this movement was restarted in the year 1932, they did not much participated in this movement. Now let's start with the poor peasantry. Yes children, the poor peasantry, they were not much interested in the lowering of rate of revenue. These poor peasantry, they were working as tenants, cultivating fields of the land which was of the landlords, and they had to pay the rents for it. As the depression continued and the cash income disappeared, these poor peasantry, they found it difficult to pay the rents, and now they wanted the landlords to forgive the unpaid rents. So these peasantry groups, often they joined the radical movements which were led by socialist and communist group. Socialists, the people, those who had a belief that a country's wealth should be equally distributed among all the citizens of the country. As well as communists, they told that the wealth of the country, it's not of a particular individual or a citizens. The wealth of a country, it belongs to government. And this the no rent campaign made by these poor peasants were not supported by the Congress because they were afraid it may upset the rich peasants. They did not wanted to upset the rich peasants and the landlord. So they did not supported the poor peasantry. So the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress, it remained uncertain. Now let's talk about the business class of India. Let's see, why did they join the movement? How did they relate to the civil disobedience movement? During the First World War, our business classes, they had gained a huge profit and had become very powerful. Now they wanted their businesses to be expanded, so they reacted against the colonial policies that restricted business activities. They wanted protection against the imported foreign goods, and they also wanted a rupee sterling exchange ratio that could discourage the imported foreign goods. Yes children, the currency of India is rupee and that of Britain is sterling, and the exchange valuation between rupee and sterling is known as rupee sterling exchange ratio that could discourage the imports from England. So these business classes, to organize the business interest, they formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in the year 1920 and the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries in the year 1927, which was led by prominent industrialists like Purushottam Das, Thakur Das and G.D. Birla. They attacked the colonial policies that were controlling the Indian economy, and these high business classes, they with full enthusiasm, they supported the civil disobedience movement. They gave financial assistance to the movement even. They even refused to buy or sell imported goods. For this business class, the meaning of Swaraj was now no longer restrictions would exist in the business activities of Indians, as well as trade and industry would flourish without any restriction. But after the failure of second roundtable conference, this business class were not much interested in this movement, but they were instead worried of the militant activities which were going on all over the country, as well as the prolonged disruption of their businesses. They were also worried of the feelings of the socialism which was growing among the younger members of the Congress. Now let's talk about the industrial working classes. How did they join the civil disobedience movement? The industrial working classes did not participate in larger number, except in Nagpur region. As the industrialist group came closer to the Congress, the working class, they stayed aloof. The reason was, this working class, they were fighting against the owners of the industries. The workers who participated in this movement, they actively participated in it. They adopted some of the Gandhian measures like boycotting of foreign goods along with their movements, the movement which was against the low wages and the poor working conditions. There were strikes by the railway workers in the year 1930 and the dock workers in the year 1932. In 1930, thousands of workers of Chota Nagpur tin mines, they came out, they wore Gandhian caps and they protested, went on rallies. But the Congress did not support the demands of this working classes, because they had a fear that if they'll support the workers' demand, it would alienate the industrialist group as well as divide the anti-imperial forces. Now let's study about the women's participation in the civil disobedience movement. Another important feature of the civil disobedience was the large-scale participation of the women in this movement. And during the Salt March, thousands of women, they came out of their homes to listen to Gandhiji. Women also participated in Salt March. They boycotted the foreign goods, they picketed the liquor shops, and even they went to jail. And now these women, they were of high caste in the urban areas, and in rural areas they were the wives of the rich peasants. And hearing to Gandhiji, they were so much inspired by Gandhiji that they started saying that their duty towards nation is the sacred duty of the women. Gandhiji was convinced with the idea that the women, they should look after their homes and earth, be good mothers and good wives. And for a long time, Congress was reluctant to allow women to hold any political authority within the organization. They were keen only with their symbolic presence. Now let's study the last topic of ours, the limits of civil disobedience. In the Indian society, all the social groups, they were not moved by the movement civil disobedience. One such group was the group of untouchables, who from around 1930s started calling themselves as Dalits or the oppressed classes. And this was the class which Congress was ignoring from a long time, because they had a fear that this would offend the high caste Hindus, those who were associated with them. But Mahatma Gandhi declared that untouchability, it has to be removed from the Indian society. Until and unless this untouchability is removed, they would not receive Swaraj for 100 years. As we know, children, our society had different evil practices, and one among this was the casteism. Our society was divided into different castes: the high caste, middle class, the lower caste. The high caste, they used to suppress, used to exploit or discriminate this lower caste. Mahatma Gandhi, to give this class recognition, adopted different ways. Let's study how Mahatma Gandhi gave recognition to Dalit groups. He called the Dalits Harijans, the children of God. He himself cleaned the toilets to dignify the work of sweepers. He organized satyagrahas so that they can secure entry into temples, get access to public wells, tanks, roads and schools. And he even urged the high caste societies to change their hearts and give up the practice of untouchability. He told that practicing untouchability, it's a sin. But Dalits did not have much faith towards the Congress, because the Congress had in large proportion the high caste Hindus. Instead, they started finding out solution to the problems of their communities. They started organizing themselves. They started demanding for reservations in educational institutions, to stand as a separate electorate that would choose Dalit members as members in the legislative councils. They believe that political empowerment would solve out the problems of social disabilities. Thus, Dalits, they did not participated much in the civil disobedience movement. Instead, they gave much favor to their organizations, especially in Nagpur and Maharashtra regions. Now let's study how B.R. Ambedkar fought for the Dalit groups. B.R. Ambedkar, as we already know, that he was also called as Baba Saheb Ambedkar, father of Indian Constitution, Indian jurist, economist, politician, social reformer, who campaigned against the discrimination shown towards the Dalits. B.R. Ambedkar clashed with Mahatma Gandhi at the second round table conference, demanding for separate electorates. Children, we know the meaning of separate electorates. Separate electorates, it's specially demanded by the minority group. Minority groups, who are minorities? The minority means the people, those who are less in number, they are minorities. The people, those who are more in number, they are called majorities. Minorities, they have a fear that they could be suppressed by the majorities. They may not be that influential. They may not have that resources to win over the majorities. They may not get the fair representation. For example, separate electorates for Muslim means Muslims select a leader from among the Muslims by having separate elections of Muslims. And for having separate electorate, country's voting population has to be divided on the basis of religion, caste, creed, or according to the occupation. Now, as we know, children, Britishers, they were ruling over us. They were winning territories by the game of divide and rule. And as they came to know about Ambedkar's demand to have separate electorates, they readily agreed to it. When Britishers agreed to it, Mahatma Gandhi, he became very sad. He began fast unto death, because he felt the agreeing to give separate electorates to Dalits, that would slow down the process of integration. And Mahatma Gandhi was trying hard to unify the country, and allowing Dalits to have separate electorates would further create disunity, which Mahatma Gandhi never wanted. He wanted to unify the country and achieve independence from the Britishers. And ultimately, B.R. Ambedkar, he had to accept to the position of Gandhiji. And the result was the Pune Pact of September 1932. It was an agreement between B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi, which gave the depressed classes a reservation in central and legislative councils, but they were to be voted by the general electorate. Dalits, however, did not have much faith towards the Congress-led national movement. Now let's study how the Muslims they responded towards the civil disobedience movement. After the failure of non-cooperation Khilafat movement, a large section of Muslims they felt alienated from the Congress. And from the mid 1920s, the Congress they were visibly associated with Hindu Mahasabhas. And with time, the relations between Hindu and Muslims they became worsened. And each communities they organized religious processions, which often provoked clashes and riots between them in various cities. And each riots they furthermore deepened the distance between the two communities. And the Muslim League and the Congress they were trying hard to renegotiate, to bring up an alliance so that the problems between the two communities could be solved out. The most important difference was the question of representation in the future assemblies, because Muslims they had a fear that if they are supporting the Congress further on, whether they'll get the representation. One of the leader, Muhammad Ali Jinnah of the Muslim League, he told that they will give up the demand of separate electorates if the Muslims they are given reservation in central and legislative councils as well as representation in the Muslim dominated provinces like Punjab and Bengal. And the discussions over the question of representations it kept continued. But all the hopes of resolving the issues between the two communities, it got disappeared. When M.R. Jaikar of Hindu Mahasabha, he strongly opposed the compromise between the two communities at the All Parties Conference in the year 1928. And when the civil disobedience movement, it started, there was an atmosphere of distrust and suspicion between the alienated members of the Congress. Thus, Muslim intellectuals, the leaders, they told their status is of a minority in this country. They believed that their identities and culture that would get submerged under the domination of the Hindu majorities. Thus, there was a very limited participation of the Muslims in the civil disobedience movement. Thus, we have come to an end of this unit. Children, the most certain way to succeed always is to try just one more time.